It's Wednesday, August 27th, and a new weather pattern has officially dug into the United States. And that new weather pattern is going to be some monsoon activity out in the southwest, some pretty prevalent weather out here in the upper plains, and also just a lot of troughing, bringing pretty much weather to the entire west, except for the immediate Pacific coast. Now, we actually don't have any risk of severe weather today, but that doesn't mean that we still couldn't see any strong thunderstorms in these areas. I definitely do think that it is likely today, just not really of those severe proportions. And like I was saying, the big risk today isn't going to be tornadoes, wind, or hail, but it's actually going to be the rain from these storms. We do have two main areas in which we could see up to 2 to 5 inches rain today. Those will be highlighted by both of our slight risk areas, one up here covering most of Idaho, then another one stretching from the northeastern corner of Colorado through Kansas, and then into parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then even southwestern Missouri. Then we do have just a pretty wide marginal risk of seeing some flooding today. That would be for that conditional threat of 1 to 2 inches of rain within that area. So definitely a lot of storms today out here, and definitely a somewhat elevated threat of some flash flooding, although it's going to be mostly focused on the slight risk, and it's going to be very conditional in this marginal risk. And then that cooling trend that we've seen the past couple of days is going to start to show signs of reversing itself. So we're definitely going to start to see that heat creep back in, but at least for today and the next couple of days, we're still going to see some really nice weather in anywhere that's not the Gulf Coast, Florida, and Texas. It's going to be really, really nice anywhere in that mid 70s to mid 80s feels like range, mostly closer to that mid 70s. Then we have a cold spot specifically stretching from eastern Kansas into parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and even Missouri, in which we could see potentially low 60s. Feels like temperatures, but for the rest of the country, it's just going to be that. And then for our hottest areas in Texas and Florida, we could potentially see some high 90s feels like temperatures today, although that looks like that's going to be mostly focused on eastern Texas. And because the amount of rainfall Florida has been getting, it looks like it might stay a bit cooler today in that low 90s range. And here's what the radar could look like in the southwest today, starting to see a lot of those pretty somewhat scattered storms pop up around the very early afternoon, not really being of severe proportions. Potentially down here in Arizona and New Mexico, we could see a couple of pretty strong storms really fueled by that outflow that we've been seeing with that monsoon weather pattern. But we're still going to see that big high pressure system and a lot of storms just cycling around that. And then we're going to start to see some of the stronger storms out of these, still not really likely to be of severe proportions in that upper plains convergence zone. And that would likely be around the late afternoon at that point. And moving a bit more north to parts of the northern Rockies, we actually have a bit of a cyclone rotating over the top of Idaho. This is another reason why we could see a flooding potential out here today. And I do think we could see some of our stronger storms of this bunch specifically being initiated around the late afternoon hours, likely being around that Oregon Idaho border in southern Oregon and even southern Idaho, mostly southern Idaho though. And these likely wouldn't be of severe proportions either, but definitely some strong thunderstorms and lots of rain, bringing that potential for some flooding. And another area where we could see some flooding would potentially be overnight in parts of Oklahoma and Kansas, stretching all the way down. We're going to see a low pressure system and a bit of a vortex with some troughing kind of overspread this area, bringing a lot of these showers. And then the last area of interest is going to be initiated by some troughing and then a bit of another cold front digging in, which I do think could be out here in the Great Lakes region, specifically in Wisconsin and Minnesota. I think we'll see a line of thunderstorms bubble up. Will these be severe? Probably not, but definitely a strong line of thunderstorms to stay weather aware of in the early night hours. And these are 500 millibar winds really driving all of our weather today. The first thing we'll notice is that cyclone up here in the northwest, which is one of the reasons for that flooding threat, and some strong thunderstorms up here in Oregon and Idaho. Then we'll just see a lot of troughing going on, and then that high pressure ridge also still out here, bringing a lot of storms to this area, and then those monsoon conditions in Arizona and New Mexico. And we're also going to see a lot of westerly flow over the upper plains convergence zone. That is definitely going to help to bring some thunderstorms to that area today as well. Another thing we'll notice is a bit of a trough digging in, also bringing a cold front up here in the northern Midwest and Great Lakes region. That is why I do think we could see some strong storms up there today. Then we'll also see a low pressure system in Vortex kind of overspread this area in Kansas and Oklahoma, potentially bringing some flooding out there and some stronger storms. And that's pretty much it for today. And the last thing I want to cover before we go is the National Hurricane Center outlook. There's currently nothing out here really threatening any land at all. Of course, we have Tropical Storm Fernand, which is still pushing out into the Atlantic. It's just going to be a fish storm, isn't going to affect anybody. And because we don't really have any super interesting areas of severe weather today, we're not really going to take a deep dive into those weather soundings like we normally do and look at the environment. Just know that if you're in any of the areas that I talked about, there will probably be some thunderstorms in your area today, potentially being on the stronger side. So just stay weather aware for that.